Greetings, thank you for joining us again today. I'd like to talk today about mid-mount electric bicycle motors. In this case, I've got a Bafang, it's a Bafang 8-fun style mid-mount bicycle motor. Mine's been installed for roughly 7 years, and over that time I've covered over 4,000 miles. I'm not sure exactly how much I've covered at this point because the counter, the odometer, went and reset at the 4,000 mile mark, which is kind of irritating. It may be because I connected the battery the wrong way round too many times or something, who knows. But it's one little fault that really doesn't take away anything from the rest of the device, which works flawlessly. So if you're in the market for a electric bicycle motor, you'll be more aware at this point that there are two main sorts. There's the mid-mount motor, like this one, which goes low down and in the middle of the bike, hence mid-mount. And they allow you to leverage the bicycle's full gear set, whatever that is, to make the most of your motor, to make the most out of your batteries and make the most out of your range. Then there are the hub motors that go in the front wheel or the back wheel, or both if you're fancy. And those are the two main kits. There are other little kits which will rub on the wheel, but don't go that route. Don't go that route. So in my case, I went for the mid-mount motor because it is the lightest weight possible, but what weight it does have, it keeps it low on the bike. And if you're crafty about it, like a build like this, you take your battery and you put it within the frame. That way you keep your center of gravity really, really low. And in wet weather, in slippy ice conditions, it's going to make a difference, because the lower the center of gravity on your bike, the better your stability will be generally. So it's been good, it really has. I've no complaints. Aside from the odometer resetting at the 4,000 mile mark, and well, actually no, another one is the clock doesn't keep particularly good time. Maybe that's just mine, or maybe that's just a problem with the whole range, but it's probably something to do with the fact that we're always changing the batteries out. The system has probably its own built-in battery, and yeah, just don't trust the clock really. It's been good though. This is the second bicycle frame I've had it on. I decided to upgrade to this frame because it was larger than my previous frame. And when it comes to frames, having a big frame, if you're a larger fella like me, makes a difference, believe me. It lets you get far enough away from those pedals to put down the appropriate amount of torque without ruining your knees. When I initially purchased the kit, I couldn't afford the lithium batteries that are best used with this sort of device. So instead I bought 3 lead acid batteries, each weighing a couple of kilograms each. And I had them on the back here, which almost works well. But the fact is, a bit of weight up here puts your center of gravity higher than you'd like. And so when you're cycling over ice, it can be absolutely terrifying, because it only takes a little bit of a push to push you over the point of stability, and then you're on the floor. The other thing we find is when you go over bumps, anything that's on this rack gets jogged off. And what happened to the previous frame, apart from it being smaller than I'd like, is I was riding along the pavement and the batteries came adrift. They came off here and they went straight through the back wheel, and I was left sitting on the floor wondering what had happened, and walked home with the bits. But the kit itself took a pounding and was still fine. So on with the new frame when we roll on regardless. I like the fact that the kit comes with everything you really need. So it's got the motor, and that's integrated with the bottom bracket replacement. So you just take out your old bottom bracket and shove this one in. It's got roller bearings in there, which means it's a smoother push, and they reckon it's maintenance free up to 10,000 miles. I wouldn't take it that far, maybe the 8,000 mile mark, but it certainly requires a lot less maintenance than the other bottom brackets you might find, such as the ones where the bearings are the old school ones with the bearings and the cups, and you can take everything apart. Those require a lot of maintenance and they wear out faster. These have been good. You fit it, you push it through the frame, and you lock it on either side. It has a little reed switch here which reads a little magnet and works out how fast the wheel's turning at any given time in combination with a torque sensor. And it uses this information to work out how much power to deliver based on the settings you put up on the screen here. The computer's configurable in several ways. You can have it's a three power setting, there's a 7 power settings. I think there might be a 5 power setting. I've got it on the 7 power setting mode at the moment, but it really doesn't make a difference. I just crank it up to full and let it go. When you get the batteries, when you first fit it, there's a bit of a bedding in period. Now, I don't know whether that's my imagination or whether it's something else, but it does appear to be learning how best to deliver the power. It's monitoring more than just those sensors, I think. It was just notable that for the first couple of miles, first 50 miles or so, it was performing really, really well. But then after that time, it seemed to learn how best to run itself. That's just my imagination. I don't know. Maybe if you work for Bafang, you could tell me. But just something I feel it does. And if you change out the batteries, as I did, because I went from the lead acid to a lithium power pack. I'll show you my lithium power pack. So if you change out your batteries, you'll find some battery configurations work far better than others. In my case, I found the lead acid batteries, they worked okay up to a point, but their weight really drags you down. When I upgraded to lithium ion and graphene, I found the weight comes right down, of course, and your performance goes up. The lithium ions, the graphene batteries, they also deliver power far more quickly than the lead acids are generally capable of, which again is a good thing, because if there's one thing the bike needs, it needs power, and it needs power quickly on demand. Now, this here, this is what they call a hobby grade graphene battery. It kicks out something like 11.1, 11.4 volts generally, although of course when you charge it you can get the voltage quite a bit higher than that. They last really well. This one's from Turnergy and I would recommend it thoroughly. They are for drones. This one's drone rated. It's not really for a bicycle. I have far larger ones with far more capacity on board. I've got, this is technically 2 batteries together in parallel, and that makes up one battery, or cell 1 in this case, cell 2 and cell 3. Yeah, they're differing sizes. This is what I could afford at the time, but together they give me a reasonable range. It's something of the order of 8 amp hours overall. That's what it equates to. Now my lead acid batteries, they were 10 amp hours, but you know, they didn't last any longer. Boy, they were a whole lot more heavy. This whole thing weighs about 1.5 kilograms. The lead acids would weigh 2 kilograms each, and you've got 3 of those. That's 6 kilograms on the bike, dead weight. So, charging. Now, charging your batteries can be quite interesting. If you are one of those lucky folk who can afford a off-the-shelf bicycle with an off-the-shelf battery kit from, you know, a main bicycle shop, then you'll likely have your own charger which charges everything at once. And that's great. That's great. Your bike might have many cells to charge, but it's all handled for you. However, when you're coupling it together like I am, you have to take measures into your own hands. I did have a 12 volt lead acid battery charger for my lead acid cells, which is great because it charges up to a certain voltage, i.e. 14 volts is what it's charging up to. Now, given that the average ideal voltage of this battery is 11.1, 11.4 volts, no higher than 12.5 volts really, you don't want to be charging up to 14 volts because you'll have a fire on your hands. So with that in mind, I've got a hobby charger. Now, there are a lot of those out there. You can look on Banggood, any eBay, you'll find them. They're all much of a muchness. If you can afford better, buy better. This one wasn't cheap. However, you know, for the £30 mark, you get a fairly decent kit. And this one, it just plugs into the mains via a 12 volts. It's got a 12 volt power supply. Basically, it means you can charge in a field from a 12-volt source or run it off the mains. So there it is. That one, I have it set up to charge lithiums, and there's various settings, and what I do is I just take them one by one. It's essentially 3 cells, and I monitor it continually all the way through. You cannot leave lithium to its own devices. So what I do is I get the marking carefully on the top. I've got, this is the negative end. They're marked in series, so you know that's cell 1, cell 2 in the middle, cell 3. They're linked together. So the 11.4 to 12 volts linked together, we eventually get around about not quite 36 volts. So this is charging one at a time. And I have little leads coming out from each one of the batteries that I cover up with tape, because you don't want these to short out in your bag or on your desk at work. It's quite frightening when it does that. Because of course, if you short them out, lithium ion batteries don't do well. Lithium batteries don't do well at all. In fact, they puff out and catch fire. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Here we go. Observing polarity, negative this end and positive this end. It will soon tell you if you get it wrong. The charger, that is. There we go. And I charge it to 11.1 volts, and the system monitors it very carefully. There is, come on, you might be able to pick it up. It's very straightforward. It just monitors the voltage. Now, if you have one of these cells on its own, you'll find it has these little balance leads. The idea is this cell's not just one, this battery is not just one cell. It's a bundle of cells all together, all working together to create that voltage. So in this case, it's a 3S battery, 3 cells. You have more cells in the battery pack, you'll have more balance leads. A good charger has these ports on the side, which allow you to monitor the voltage on each one of the cells. And what it does is it charges the battery up to a certain point, then it comes down and discharges some of the overcharged cells to make sure everything's evenly spaced out. That way your battery doesn't kill one of the cells faster because it charged faster. They vary quite a bit. This is early tech, and as things get better and better, they will improve, believe me. The battery cell that I've got here, I just bypassed that completely because I'm not interested in the balance ports at all. If the battery fails, I'm going to pound it anyway. These things, I change them out every couple of months because that's where you get best performance, because I really do hammer them. There's no excuse for it, you know. The average battery, you can charge it a couple of 100 times. If you really hammer it, maybe less. But you are getting a lot of performance for your money. So, you know, factor that in. Do not leave them unattended. Never leave a lithium battery charging unattended, because they will turn on you, they will puff out, and when they puff out, that's because they're full of gas and they're about to explode, and you have to get those in a garden, in the bucket, get them away from anything that you value. So, with the battery connected, let's have a look at the display and see some of the features. So, with the device turned on, you're presented with some basic information, speed of course, trip distance or total distance, the unreliable clock, power level, and of course how much battery is remaining. This here measures the overall voltage across the cells. Now, if you're running the lead acid sort of battery, they are nominally 12 volts, but when they're fully charged, they go up to 14 volts. So it's measuring 3 times 14 across the overall voltage. And if you've got that much voltage available, it will show the full 4 bars. In this case, it's only showing 2 bars because I've got lithium cells and they run at a low voltage anyway. They top out around the 12.5 volts if you fully charge them. So this is as high as it will ever go with the current pack. It's got 7 levels of power, which I can scroll through. The higher the number, the higher the speed will go before the motor cuts out. And you can turn it off completely, of course, which is good for when you're walking with it and you don't want it to suddenly kick in. If you catch your pedals by accident, you can cause the motor to suddenly kick off because it believes you're starting to pedal. That can be quite alarming in certain places. It's best to turn off your machine when you're in a railway station. And on this side, we've got the little throttle switch, which you can press down if you want to give it a little boost. It's a pretty bomb-proof system. Now, one thing I have noted over the time is there are certain vulnerabilities. The brakes, the brake levers, have a switch incorporated, and it's a magnetic sort of switch, a transistor switch, and it sits here and it determines whether the brake's been pulled or not, as the case may be. And when the brake is pulled, it cuts the power to the motor. The thing is, these wires are a little bit vulnerable. You can see I've gaffer taped mine up because it fell out. It's a minor thing. You do have to protect your wires as best you can, because whilst you've got wires trailing everywhere, you can damage them by mounting lights, that sort of thing, or just hanging a bike lock over the handlebars. Finally, I must make mention of one of the best features that this display has, which is the light up screen. So on a dark morning or a dark night, it's really friendly to have. There are several light intensity settings. I have mine cranked up to the max, but basically just hold down a button and on it comes. It's cracking good. I like it. I don't know why it gives me so much pleasure, but it just does. Yeah, anyway, that's about all to be said about the display. So, in conclusion, if you're thinking of upgrading your bicycle to include a mid-mount bicycle motor, I would heartily recommend it. It really is a worthwhile upgrade. Before the upgrade, I was feeling the pain in my knees. Years and years of cycling, thousands of miles I've covered, mostly commuting, it's taken its toll. And I was getting to the point where general pain in my knees, you just can't take enough painkillers. Now, taking the strain off my knees and allowing me to continue cycling has allowed me to clear the debris that was causing problems in my knees by just general use, good exercise, light exercise being the key. Keep up with the miles, but it's still light miles. And by light miles, I can then keep my joints moving as they should and keep off the operating table just a little longer. This has been 7 years without regrets with this device, and I don't often get to say that. Bafang haven't paid me for my opinion. This is my money on the table all those years ago, and I've not regretted it. Not a once. Yeah. And I look forward to buying the next Bafang when finally I find a really good reason to upgrade. And that really good reason will be when this thing fails, because I'm like that. But when I do, yeah, no regrets. So, if you've stuck with me this long, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Well, bye for now.